hope you guys are all doing well. I sure miss you all. Today I'm going to be going over the introduction of chapter 6, which is we're going to be working on inequalities and equations. So first we're going to start with equations and then move on to inequalities. So let's get going. So your essential question, or what you need to know, is what does it mean to say two quantities are equal? Okay, so what you guys have done in the past, previous chapter, is we worked on using properties of operation to simplify expressions. So you put like terms together and combine like terms together. And then now what you're going to be doing is solving equations and inequalities. So sometimes you're going to have to combine those like terms together in order to solve equations. Alright, so 6.1, so today we're going to be working on just one-step addition equations. So this is part 1, part 2 will be tomorrow. So let's get going. Alright, so our vocabulary today is we have inverse operation. So an inverse operation undoes another operation. So addition undoes subtraction, and subtraction will undo addition. The inverse of multiplication is division, and then division is the opposite, or the inverse operation is multiplication. So today we're going to be working on the subtraction property of equality. I'll say that again, subtraction property of equality. Well, equality means that it is equal, okay? And we're going to be working with subtraction. So what we do to one side, we have to do to the other, and that's what the subtraction property of equality states. So it states when you subtract the same number from both sides of an equation, it'll be equal. Okay? So if A equals B, then A minus C on this side equals B minus C. So if I had, let's just say 4 is A, and 4 is B, right? If I subtract 2 on this side, I have to subtract 2 on this side, and I'll still get my equation true. Okay? Alright, so first we're going to solve this problem, which is x plus 6 equals 4, and then we need to check our solution. So the first step that you need to do is find the variable. Now remember, a variable is just the letter, the unknown, okay? So in this case, I have x plus 6 equals 4. The variable is the x, okay? The next step that we have to do is we have to decide what's happening to the variable. Here's the variable. I see that I'm adding 6, okay? So I know that I'm adding 6, so I'm going to go ahead and put plus 6 here. So the third step that we have to do is use the inverse operation to undo it. Well, what is the opposite of adding 6? The inverse of adding, remember, is subtracting. So we're going to, instead of add 6, we're going to subtract 6. Now, we have to do it to both sides of the equation. So I have, this is how I want you guys to line up your equation. So you see the plus 6 here, I'm going to subtract 6 right underneath it, okay? So if I subtract 6 on the left side of the equal sign, I have to subtract 6 on the right side of the equal sign, okay? And now I just think of vertical adding and subtracting, okay? So this is 0, so I'm left with x, and then plus 0 is just going to be x. And then what is 6 minus 6? Well, that's 0. I'm not going to write anything because it's gone, because x plus 0 is just x. And then the next thing, I'm going to write, I keep my equal sign nice and lined up, and then I do 4 minus 6. 4 minus 6 is a negative 2. Okay? There's more negatives than positives, so you will be going into the negative side. So now that I have my solution is x equals negative 2. I have to check my solution now. And how I check my solution is I need to rewrite my equation, so x plus 6 equals 4. And I rewrite it, and then all I do is substitute in that -2 for x. So instead of writing x, I'm going to write a -2, and then everything else stays the same. Plus 6 equals 4, okay? And then what is -2 plus 6? That's 4. So I have 4 equals 4. And then that checks, because that's true. If I had like 5 equals 4, then that means that I did either my check wrong, or I didn't get my solution right in the first place, and you would have to go and look to see where your mistake was. Okay? Next thing is, so what is our solution? Is it 4 equals 4 or x equals -2? Well, the solution to this equation is -2. So x equals -2. Not just -2, but you should say x equals -2. All right? And then what property was used? Well, what did I have to do to determine what property is what I did to the problem, not what we started off with. So what did I do right here? I subtracted. So I used subtraction on both sides. So because I used subtraction on both sides, then that means it's the subtraction property of equality. Okay? All right, so let's go on to the next problem. All right, here is our new problem. It's solve -5 equals b plus 8. And then we need to check our solution. So the first step that we need to do is find our variable. I like to rewrite my problem, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it. So -5 equals b plus 8. Okay, so where is my variable? Remember, my variable is my unknown, or what I don't know yet, or my letter. Okay, so this right here, b, is my unknown. So I found my variable. Step 2 is to decide what is happening to my variable. I am adding 8. So I'm going to go ahead and put plus 8 over here. And the third step is I need to use the inverse operation to undo it. So what's the inverse of adding 8? Yes, so that would be subtracting 8. So to undo it, I have to subtract 8 on both sides of the equal sign. Okay? Now, we remember with combining like terms, we're going to combine like terms. So I'm going to subtract 8 under the 8, because I can combine these, right? And I'm going to subtract 8 under the -5. Okay? So what am I left with? I have what on the left? I have -5 minus 8. So -5 minus 8 is -13 equals, and then b, and there's nothing here, so it's 0, so it's just b. And then it says 8 minus 8, well, that's 0, so I'm not going to write anything. So my solution, I believe, is -13 equals b. But first we're going to go ahead and check to see if I got it right. And who remembers how to check? First you rewrite the equation. So you're going to write -5 equals b plus 8. All right, the second thing is I'm now going to, instead of b, we know that b is -13. I'm going to plug in that -13 in for b, and then rewrite everything else the same. So what is -13 plus 8? Since my signs are different, I have negative and positive, I'm going to subtract in my head. So 13 minus 8 is 5. And I have more negatives. So it's going to be -5. Then I rewrite everything else the same. And I have -5 equals -5. Is that true? Yes. So then that means that my solution is b equals negative 13. So what property did I use? Go back up here. What did I do to the equation on both sides? I subtracted. So I used subtraction. So what property did I use? I used the subtraction property of equality. Okay? All right, let's go to our next problem. So in your notebook, I want you to make sure that you guys are writing this down. So I want you to go ahead and try this on your own. See if you can do it or do it with me, okay? So first step is to find the variable, right? Like make your variable bold, whatever you need to do to find it. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my equation. So I have y plus 6 equals 9. My variable is y. I find it to see what is happening to my y. Well, I'm adding 6 to it. Okay? Now I need to, the third step is to undo that positive 6. So I need to use the inverse operation to undo it. So what's the opposite of adding 6? Is subtracting 6. So I'm going to subtract 6 on both sides of the equation. So if I subtract 6, I don't want to write it under the y because I want to write it under common terms, okay, or like terms. So minus 6 under the 6. So I have to do it on one side of the equal sign, so the equal sign is here, and then I have to do minus 6 on the right side. Okay. Next, I'm going to go ahead and go through my equation. So y and 0 is just y, so I'm just going to bring down that y. And then 6 minus 6 is 0, so I'm going to cross that off. Bring down my equal sign. Then I have 9 minus 6, which is 3. So I have my solution. I need to check to see if I did it right. So how do I check? I need to rewrite my equation. So y plus 6 equals 9. I'm now going to substitute in the 3. Oops, not the 6, silly me, into the y. So I'm going to put the 3, and then I'm going to rewrite everything else the same. Plus 6 equals 9. Go ahead and simplify. What is 3 plus 6? That's 9. And then I keep this the same, so that equals 9. So 9 equals 9, that is correct. So my check is right, they were equal. So then what is my solution? The y equals 3 is my solution. I always like to box my solution so I can find it on my paper. And then what property did we use? We subtracted. Okay, so we did the subtraction property of equality. All right, these are the last two problems that I have for you. I would like you to try them on your own. I will be posting these into the classroom so you can do it in the practice there and show me what you got.